My name is Miguelina Perez. Welcome to my YouTube channel, A Writer's Perspective. I'm honored to introduce my first guest, Heather Heyford, author of the Napa Wine Heiresses and Willamette Valley Romance series. Heather was born in the Northeast and learned to talk and walk in Texas, then moved to England. Now in the US, she shares her life with her husband, Art, and pets Boom, Cubby, and Blackberry. Heather's contemporary romance novels are set in the wine country, where she visits frequently for research and some tasting. Lucky girl. Her novels are about hard-headed, soft-hearted women struggling in our tumultuous times with humor and grace. Please welcome Heather Heyford.
Heather, I want to thank you for agreeing to appear on the A Writer's Perspective. Welcome. It's
Thank you
an
so much
honor.
for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. One of the first things I want to talk about is at what point in your life did you realize you want to write?
Well, I was actually an art teacher,
Okay.
but I had this story. I taught high school art, but I had this story in the back of my mind for about 10 years. And finally, one day I was just like, I'm just going to write this story and then I'll be done with it. And then I could just forget about it and move on. And exactly the opposite happened. What happened was I wrote it and I fell in love with writing. And I liked writing more than I liked teaching art. And so instead of it being, a once and done thing, it was really just like the beginning of something.
What happened when you told your family about it and your friends? Did they think you were crazy?
I didn't tell anybody.
Okay.
So one of the really nice things about never being published is you don't have any timeline, you don't have any contract. You can just write in your spare time and have it be your little hobby. And that is actually a real luxury compared to after you get published and you're under contract and on deadline, and then it becomes, an obligation that you love, but you can never. Sometimes I think longingly back in the day when I could just, oh, I have an hour here, I think I'll write for a while.
Were you married then? Did you have?
Oh yeah.
You were married and you had the children,
I had
right?
been married for a long time. And I had a teenage daughter, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but
That's okay.
once I started writing, she was really embarrassed because they were romance novels. Even though there's not, my novels are what they call in the industry sweet, which
Mhm.
is there's a scale from sweet to hot and
Yes.
a bunch of ranges in between. And I didn't even know it at the time, but it turns out mine are kind of on the sweet side. But she, being a teenager, was really embarrassed. And she's like, Mom, why can't you just write like normal books? Like, I don't know, about the Civil War or something. And I'm like, he was from the North, she was from the South. They met on the Mason-Dixon line. And she's like, no, not that.
Wonderful story. What happened to your first draft? I've heard of authors saying, oh, I threw it under the bed or I trashed it.
Everything they say about first books being your teacher pretty much was true for me. I poured my heart and soul into that book. And then one of the best decisions I made was I entered a lot of contests that were judged by editors and agents that would give you feedback. That was the most important thing. I really didn't enter them thinking I would win. I entered them with, wanting that feedback. And the other thing that I did that I noticed a lot of unpublished authors don't do is I took their advice. I was willing to say, well, it was obvious to me they were right and I was wrong. And I think that's what helped me get published, because then when I went on, I applied all of those things that they told me, because they've been in the business and I'm trying to get into the business. So I think, so you have to remember, I was a visual artist before I became a writer. And a lot of times I think artists are afraid to do what other people advise them to because they feel like they're selling out.
Yeah.
And you have to balance that with, well, how badly do I want to be published? Do I really want to be published? Then I'm going to listen to these experts that are giving me their time and their advice for nothing.
That's very smart.
And yeah, well, so that's what I did. And one of the things I learned was that publishers, especially at the time in romance, they wanted a series. They didn't just want a standalone book. So first of all, I didn't even know what genre I was writing in when I started. And I eventually joined a local chapter of a national writers group and got a lot of advice there. And one of the things that they taught me was you have to know what genre you're writing in, because every genre has its rules. Romance has rules, mysteries have rules, thrillers have rules. And again, going back to being an artist and everything and thinking that, oh, I don't have to follow the rules, I'm an artist. Well, guess what? Until you're Nora Roberts or until you're Steven Spielberg, you should probably follow the rules. After that, you can break all the rules if you want to, but this is when I was coming up, and I'm actually still at that level. So somehow, I don't even remember planning this trip, but somehow my husband and I ended up in the Napa Valley, and it had always been my dream to go to the wine country. I live on the East Coast. The wine country's on the West Coast. I never thought that I would actually get there, but suddenly I found myself there and I absolutely fell in love with it. And when I was on the plane ride home, I started writing my first book that eventually got published. I wrote that whole thing, and because I knew that I wanted a series, I decided that I had an idea already in place for sister books for this. And I really think that when I finally submitted it, that was one of the reasons that my book was picked up.
So was this a Taste of Chardonnay?
Yeah.
Okay. I started reading that one and I never got around to finishing that one. So I still have it. I did read First Comes Love.
Oh,
right?
Thanks. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, oh my God, there were several scenes where I just fell off my chair. It was hysterical. Yeah, there was with him and her, but we'll discuss that a little bit more down the road.
Okay.
So once you published, how difficult was that? I mean, did you get rejections? What was that process like?
Well, honestly, I didn't get many rejections.
Okay.
I think I was so prepared from that first book and all of the times it had just been ripped apart and criticized and everything, that by the time I wrote my second one, I think I was able to apply a lot of the things that I had learned. I probably submitted it to, and I really don't even remember now, 3 or 4 at least publishers, thinking the whole time, just like when I entered those contests, I'm going to get rejections because that's it. I used to think, and I did get a couple of rejections, and I really was not devastated by it because I thought, this means you're in the game.
Right.
If you're not in the game, you're not going to get rejections or anything accepted.
Right.
So what I ended up, if I could put it in a nutshell, was it's just like when you apply to college. I chose a publisher that I thought would be, I probably would get picked up by them. Then I chose one that was kind of in the middle of the road. And then I chose like your reach school, like I'll never get in there, but I'm just going to apply anyway. So about 3 months go by, I don't hear from any of them.
Right.
And
it's hard.
I mean, I started being a sad sack, and my husband would come home for dinner and I'd be like, whatever made me think that I can do this, I can't be an author. I don't even know what I was thinking. So I thought, who am I to think that I could ever be a writer? And one day, and actually it was just about this time of year, because I was standing on this rickety ladder hanging Christmas decorations above my fireplace. And over in the kitchen, my phone rings. And you know how it is, you think, oh, by the time I climb down this ladder, go over to the kitchen and get the phone, whoever it is will have hung up. Yeah. But then I thought, what if it's New York? So I scrambled down the ladder, I go over, I pick up my phone, and it's, lo and behold, it's a 212 area code.
Wow.
And I pick up my phone, and it was my editor, Essie from Kensington, and she said, hey, Heather, we love your book. We want to buy all of them, all of your ideas. And I was just like, what? And And then she just kept talking for like a half an hour. And then I said, can you just repeat everything you said? Because I didn't hear anything you said after you said you wanted to buy my books. And she's like, this is the best part of my job. So she said, don't worry, I'm going to put everything in writing. I'll send it to you and I'll send you an email and everything. And after I hung up, I called my husband and he thought I was having a heart attack. And after that, I thought, did that whole thing really actually happen? Like, did I just make that up? So that was the start. And then I've since written 10 romances for Kensington.
Wow. Have you written for other publishers?
No, I haven't. And
okay.
So what happened was the day after I heard from Kensington, I heard from that A publisher that I was talking about. And then I thought, well, what if I hear from the other publisher as well? So I thought, I need an agent to decide between these authors. So I went to my bookshelf right here behind me. I'm just looking at the bookshelf like, I pull out a Robin Carr novel and I open up the beginning and I'm going down, who's her agent, because I always aspire to write like Robin Carr. I'm not going to say that I do, and I read who her agent was. I fired off an email to her and she wrote right back and she said, I'm not the gal for you, but I know who is. I want you to email this other young lady. Her name was Sarah Younger. And ever since then, Sarah has been my agent. So I kind of found my agent backwards.
Right. That's great.
Yeah, so she negotiated the 2 offers that I had.
Oh, really? Okay,
So,
great. Yeah. So you think it's better? You should be getting a literary agent first, right?
I don't know that I'm one to ask. The only thing I will say is that many publishers won't even look at your manuscript unless it's submitted by an agent. I know that.
Gotcha.
So
that's good to know.
I think what I would do if I was just starting out is I would figure out what genre I'm writing in. Most likely it's going to be your favorite genre to read. If you don't know, go to a bookstore, find the books that you love, look at and see what genre they are. Then you know the publisher. Once you have those books, you can look and see who the publisher is. Start researching those publishers and even right down to the editors. My editor doesn't know it, but I stalked her for a long time in a nice way.
Yeah.
So that I could word my query letter, geared to who she was. I found out coincidentally we both went to the same college.
Oh my gosh.
So kind of slipped that in there.
Oh, wow.
But you don't want to, when you write a query letter, you don't want it to sound like you're writing it to somebody that you just pulled out of a hat or pulled off the internet. You want to be able to make some kind of connection.
That's a good point. Thank you. How did you juggle family life and writing?
Well, luckily, by the time all this stuff started happening, my daughter pretty much had her own, social life, and she didn't really need cared for much. And then she went off to college. My husband has his own business, so he has always kept long hours.
Yeah.
So it was more like juggling my job, my day job with writing.
Okay, so you did have a full-time job.
Yeah, I did then.
Okay, how did that go with the writing?
Well, and then I was also a teacher, so I had summers off. And after a while, I left my teaching job and I subbed. And when you're a substitute, usually the regular teacher leaves assignments for the kids, and so you're just sitting there. So I would actually be writing while I was subbing for a couple of years.
Yeah, I did subbing in Texas, in San Antonio.
Okay, so you know the drill. And high school is different than elementary school. I don't know what grade you subbed for.
I did kindergarten. I did first grade. I did third grade, and then high school. Not so great because kids are tough.
Kids are really tough.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think when the little kids need more of your attention.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. with
If
the little ones.
you enjoyed subbing?
With the little ones, yeah.
Oh,
I had it
yeah,
with the
yeah.
little ones.
Yeah, the
It-
big kids.
Yeah, the big
That's
kids.
a whole different, show.
I had to call the principal and say, get me out of here. It was just not my, and then after that, I didn't do high school. That was my first and last high school thing.
Yeah.
I mean, from when I grew up, you know, we treated substitutes with respect, you know. Nowadays, is, you know, but then again, I grew up I went to a all girls Catholic high school.
That
So
was my
nuns,
favorite place to sub.
yeah. So the nuns
Because
were like,
they had their own disciplinary principal.
mhm,
That's all
sure did.
he did.
They sure did.
Yeah.
So so now you're traditionally published. How do you feel about self-publishing, indie publishing? Have you had thoughts on doing a separate line of a series and having them self-published? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a lot of people can write fast. I really admire those people. I'm not a fast writer. Some people will tell me I'm a fast writer, but there are writers, as you know, that can crank out 4, 5, 10 books a year.
Yeah, I'm not like that.
God bless them. I envy them. I bow down to them. It's just not me. I would love to write 1 book a year. So if you can write really fast, I think that and you enjoy the other part of self-publishing, which is the formatting and the business end, basically, of
Right.
publishing.
Right.
That's great, and I see a lot of advantages to self-publishing. Like, you have a lot more control over everything. You get all the money, which is great. I'm not
Right.
saying I will never self-publish. I
Right,
think
right.
the book I'm writing right now is not going to be for everyone. I don't know if it will sell to a publisher, honestly.
Okay.
So, and if it doesn't, I have no problems with self-publishing it.
Self-publishing,
Yeah.
Okay. So the publishing industry, I know, is constantly changing, especially when things went into like ebooks, and we started to lose stores like Borders. I can't think of the other, Walden's Books, and
Mhm.
so now it seems like the only one that's out there is like Barnes and Noble. And I know that because of that, a lot of these publishers decided, we'll publish your book, but you got to do a lot of the marketing. Has that affected you at all?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if you and I have written the same identical book, and we both submit it to a publisher, and you have a website and I don't have a website, you have Facebook followers and I don't have Facebook followers, you're going to get the contract, because even though they'll do some of the PR for you, you are expected to pull your fair share of the load promotion wise, especially nowadays when I think everybody is looking for personalities or whatever to be more authentic. People don't want that extra shield up in between. They want to know the real person. You have all these celebrities that air all their dirty laundry on a daily basis, and I think that kind of fuels an appetite for that kind of thing. So I don't think everybody has to do that, but I do think it kind of increases the expectation to see the real person.
Wow. Okay.
For better or for worse, Lena.
Yeah. So does part of the marketing, does it require you to attend, writing conferences, writing retreats? How many do you attend a year, or don't you attend any?
Before the pandemic, I was attending one major conference every year, like a national conference, plus probably 2 or 3 or 4 regional conferences. The local chapter that I was involved with, we had some of our own conferences. So yeah, but it really was less for marketing purposes than it was just for just to connect with other writers and to go to workshops and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, because
And
as you know, writing can be very lonely.
yes, it can
And
be.
even if you have people around you, only other writers really understand
What
what you're
you're going
going through. So I really miss that.
Yeah.
I
And
really miss
it
going to
was also good for information too, to
Oh,
stay
absolutely.
up to date on what's going on in the publishing industry. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So so I want to talk about the theme in your stories. And so from reading First Comes Love, let me tell you a little bit about my prejudice. I'm using that word for lack of a better term. I'm used to reading stories where the heroine is almost perfect and the hero is almost perfect. They have their little, just tiny conflict. And then there's the happily ever after. And reading First Come Love has taught me a valuable lesson. And
Oh.
and I'm really grateful for that. I found it to be more realistic in terms of the struggles that the heroine goes through, Carrie goes through as a single mom and a working mom, And so at first I was like, oh, man, I don't want to, I'm not sure I'm going to connect with this woman, blah, blah, blah. But then as I kept reading, I was like, God, this is so real. This is happens every day,
That is such a compliment.
Oh, well, I'm honored. And thank you. It's and so I just got hooked right away on her. And then Alex, in trying to look at it from a male's perspective, he has his issues as well. And I can see why he's lonely. I can see why he separates himself from, trying to connect. And then, so, I really loved it. I loved the story. I'm not done yet. I'm almost done. I didn't want to rush to the end, but I'm at the point now where I know something's going to happen to separate them, and then they'll get back. So I don't want to give spoilers to the readers that are, that will be looking at this, but I'm at that point. So I'm like getting nervous. My heart's like palpitating, but I have to remind myself, it's a happily ever after. It's a happily ever after. But
yeah, it has to be, because that's one of the rules of romance. It has to have, that's one of the defining aspects of a romance. It has to have a happy ever after. So first of all, let me just show you something. These people are supposed to be 40 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
so I have to say, my publisher, that they don't have to, but they show me the covers and they say, are these okay? And if I really hate it, they wouldn't use it. But with this one, they're all lovely. But with this one, I said the hero and the heroine are 40 years old, and they said, well, that couple could be in their 40s. And I said, wish I'd look like that when I was in my 40s. But anyway, I just think that people might look at the cover and think that, oh, this is about an 18-year-old couple, when it's about a couple who are about 40 years old, and they have issues. And I'll tell you, you said you started to read my first book, A Taste of Chardonnay. When I wrote that, I thought that the heroine should be perfect and the hero should be perfect. They should be like Barbie and Ken. And they say writing is a craft, and you can improve on it, and the more you do it, the better you get. And so that's a perfect example of, from that book to this book, like 8 or 9 books later, I learned that no, the hero and heroine are much more interesting if they are flawed, just like we're
Oh
flawed.
yeah, yeah. Carrie, she's so protective of her daughters. And the issue with her oldest as well, it's real. I mean, just the other day, I'm a member of our neighborhood email for, watch out for this, watch out for that. And a woman posted about her 16-year-old had run away. And so, again, in reading Carrie's problem with Shay, and it's not, because of the communication problem, I was like, this is so real. This happens, and she's very protective of her girls. And for her to tell Alex, take them when her sister-in-law got injured, took a lot. And you feel it, and in reading it, and as a writer, you don't say it took a lot for Carrie to, but you, in the way you described it, and in the way the characters when you're reading them, you get inside. And so I felt for Carrie, I felt, this must have been hard for her, but she trusted Alex to take care of her daughters. Yeah. So that, I loved it. I can't wait to finish it. And I'm going to continue reading the Willamette series before I go into, because Stephen King says you want to be a great writer, you have to write.
Yeah.
So,
so you were talking about theme. You started talking about theme.
Right.
So, I grew up in a military family.
Oh,
and
wow.
so I moved every 3 years my whole life.
Wow.
And while I wouldn't give that up for the world, I loved seeing a bunch of new places and having all these experiences. But the thing that it did do to me was it left me feeling like I lack roots.
You didn't belong.
So my agent tells all of her writers, she says, you guys write the same book over and over and over. And as soon as she said that, I thought, you're absolutely right. All of my books at the heart are about finding home.
And Alex,
So yeah, that's what they're all of them. There's some kind of issue going on where their home is disrupted, or they don't have a home, or something like that. So you were asking me about theme. That is definitely the main theme.
Yeah, and the struggles. Because I grew up in where my dad married my stepmom, and she had 3 kids. My dad had a bunch of other kids, but we didn't all live with them. I was the one that kind of migrated to live with my dad and my stepmom, who I consider my mother. I mean, she raised me and took care of me when I was, sick. She would bring me, she would feed me in bed. She would give me medicine. And, since I was 12 years old. So, that's my mother. So I understood. And now at the point where I'm reading with Alex and the 2 boys, and, so I'm like, oh my God, this is, it's what do you, not, I can't think of the word, but it's just reiterating to me, that family unity and the differences and the struggles that are real, that it's just every day, a lot of women, have children from different men, and
absolutely,
and it's hard. So I really, really enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, it led me to a personal growth that was more realistic in terms of, the struggles of single moms, working moms with careers. And, the other important thing is accepting the mistakes you've made. Carrie has to accept the mistakes that she's made. And
that is so hard, isn't it?
And Alex too.
And that's part of growing up.
Yeah.
We all
Mhm.
make mistakes and we all have to accept
Yeah.
them.
And what's interesting too is, like you said, they're in their 40s, and they're both trying to rectify the mistakes that they've made in their youth, and come together. So it's a wonderful
And try
story.
again.
Yes,
Try
and
at
try
love
again.
again.
That's right. And
Yeah.
and the title says first comes love. And that's exactly what's happening in the relationship. The love is coming first. Then, they'll be able to, become a family in the
You know
end.
how the end of that story goes,
It
how
better,
that poem
it better
goes.
go the way I want it to go, or I would not be a happy reader. Let's see. So what's next for you as an author? I know you write romance, and I think I read in your bio that you're working on a woman's fiction.
I am. I have 10 romances under my belt, and I kind of feel like I've done that, loved doing it, but what I'm really dealing with right now, and I think what a lot of people are dealing with, is just what's going on in the world with so much tension, so much I don't
Turmoil.
even know the right word to say.
I call it
So
turmoil.
much conflict, so much conflict.
Yeah.
And in the past few years, I raised my daughter, but she's still a very big part of my life. And I was also helping to take care of my mother-in-law, who just passed at 95
Wow.
during
Sorry
the
about that.
pandemic.
Yeah.
And my own parents died very young, so I never
Oh,
really got to
wow.
see that was the only opportunity I had to see of what getting older looks like. And
Mhm.
I learned so much from her. She was such a character, first
Oh,
of all. But it was such a privilege for me to be able to do little things for her, and to be around her all the time. And so, of course, I have my daughter's political views coming in this year, and my mother-in-law's political views coming in this year, and it's constantly bombarding with the complete opposite points of view.
right.
Like so I was kind of like in the middle. So the name of the book is Stuck in the Middle with You, just like the old Steelers Wheel song.
Uh-huh.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you. So the book expresses both points of view, and it's
Interesting.
probably not everyone. Well, I know not everyone is going to be able to agree with every viewpoint, because I don't personally agree with every viewpoint, but it's really about being stuck in the middle and just trying to find peace, and to let the love of family, that's the
Right.
most important thing.
Well, I'm looking
And
forward to that.
finding that, and hopefully there's a lot of humor along the way too.
Well, yeah. I did laugh a couple of times with Alex and Carrie, so I was like,
Well, all you
I
can
like
do
surprise.
today is, with these culture wars, sometimes all you can do is laugh.
Yeah, yeah. Anything that you would like to say to encourage writers that are thinking about setting out to a writing career?
Yeah, so figure out what genre you write in. Join a local chapter of some national organization so that you can participate in both. If you have that national affiliation, you get a much bigger perspective on things. And that will help you. You'll find workshops, you'll find mentors, you find friends. That really helped me a lot. The other thing that I'll say is, the Nora Roberts said it best. She said the whole secret to writing. She said you can pay $10,000 and take a writing course. Here's the secret to writing: ass in chair. That is the secret. You could be the most talented writer in the world. If you don't have the self-motivation to sit down in a chair and write, then you're not going to be a writer. And if you don't, that's fine. That doesn't make you a bad person. It's just that that's really what it takes, as you know. I mean, I think there's some statistic that 1 in 10,000 people want to write, or 1 in 100 people want to write a book. 1 in 10,000 people will actually sit down and finish writing a book. So if you finished a book, you are way, way ahead of the game. Just in doing that. Because if you do it once, you can do it again.
I've met her several times, and I've spoken with her several times. I told her that I read The Stand, Stephen King's The Stand, a long time ago. I was living in Texas, so this was probably 2001. And I don't know if you've seen the book, but it's about, yay thick. And so a friend of mine was pushing me to read it, and I didn't want to read anything that thick. And so I started reading it, and I thought, God, this man is, he's a poet, in the way his narrative is just phenomenal. And so then several years later, I was still in Texas, and I discovered Montana Sky by Nora Roberts. And it was about yay big, but I would read more a romance that thick than I would, read someone that I didn't know anything about. Well, I didn't know anything about Nora Roberts either. But in reading Montana Sky, all of a sudden this thought into my mind, and I said, oh my God, she's the female version of Stephen King, but in romance. So, and that was like in 2001, 2002. I met her, we've been through RWDC, the Washington Romance Writers, DC chapter. We used to go to her house almost every year, and she would throw a picnic for us.
Really?
And she was fantastic, very nice. She's petite. She's like Erica Kane petite.
Well, I've signed with her.
You what?
I've signed with her.
Oh, you have you? Yeah.
But we didn't go to her house. We went to her shop.
And so, unbeknownst to me, in one of my conversations with her, I said, I want you to know that I read The Stand, and then I read Montana Sky, and I thought you were the female version of Stephen King. And she was floored, because it turns out, and I didn't know this at the time, she's a huge fan of Stephen King.
Is that right?
Huge, yeah, huge. I went into her library and all his books. She had all his books. Yeah. So I was floored. So that's just amazing how things come back to you from the past. And then in another conversation with her, I asked her a question, which I want to ask you. And that is, what keeps you going? And I'll tell you her response when I hear yours. Go ahead. What keeps you going?
Well, I don't have any choice. I often say artist, because like I said, I am also a visual artist, but most writers would say I'm a writer. So, and writers have to write, and that's really what it is. I would write if nobody read it, because it's what gives my life meaning. It's
in you, yeah. For her, she said at the time, her readers. But it's good to hear. It's good to hear. No, but it's good to hear your perspective, because that's what this is all about. It's your perspective.
Maybe when I have millions and millions of readers, I'll say the same thing.
Yeah, right. I don't have any. So, I have, I'm working on my third of the series, but I self-published. And I've had zillions of readers. I've had book clubs read them, and they've come back with, critique, and I fixed. And unfortunately, I don't have the budget for an editor. I did try the, submissions and stuff like that. Didn't have any luck. So right now I'm trying to finish the third in the series, and then I have a standalone romance thriller. So that brings me to a question that I wasn't going to ask you, because I didn't think about it, but now that I'm thinking about it, but you kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago. You're going to do that romance fiction one. The women's fiction one. Have you thought about other subgenres? Because you could do romance, but you could do a romance that's science fiction, or thriller.
Yeah, I have a little bit. There was a book that I absolutely love called Before We Were Yours, I think it's called, by Lisa. Her last name starts with a W. Hold on, I think it's on the shelf here.
Okay.
I can't find it right now, but Lisa Wingate. Lisa
Okay.
Wingate. And I read it. I read it and read it and read it and read it, highlighted it, outlined it and everything. And I
Wow.
realized, I think it's marketed as women's fiction, but it's actually has horror in it too.
Wow.
Because there are some children in there that are actually stolen from their parents, and it's based on a true story.
Really?
And what these children go through, horror, I read about the genre of horror, and it was defined as beyond death, like fear beyond death, like death would be a
Wow.
blessing. You know,
Wow.
you
That's
can imagine
interesting.
if you're a child and you're being held captive in a horrible place, like fear, you would rather die than
Than to
and
experience.
yeah. So I realized, and when I first read the book, and it was a blockbuster, but you won't find anybody that says that that's a horror novel. But according to one of the writing instructors who's like my guru, his name is Sean Coyne. He explains that it part of it is like it has like a horror subgenre. So yeah, I have in fact the book, I'm already thinking about the book I'm going to write after the one that I haven't finished yet now. And I think that might have a little bit of that, horror subgenre in there.
Yeah, because my first three books are Regency, Romance Regency. And then and the reason why I'm doing the romance thriller.
Are they
Well,
under this? Are they under your same name?
yes,
Oh, I have to
yes.
look for them. I
Um,
love Regency. Love
you do.
Regency. Yeah.
It's sort of like Nancy Drew meets Jane Austen.
Oh,
So they're
fun.
two young friends. And so I've published 1 and 2. I'm trying to finish number 3, and then the romance thriller one. Who's it? Random Books was interested
Oh.
in the first one, and I met with her. I pitched it. You could see her eyes getting this big, and she was salivating as I'm telling her the plot. And so she asks the doomed question. She says, "Does it have sex?" I said, "No." And so her eyes went, and the drool dried up. And she said, "I'm sorry, readers want sex. Would you be willing to add sex?" I said, "No, I'm
Yeah.
sorry." Because the whole idea of the books was based on these, they're 19-year-olds, and they fancy themselves detectives, and they want to solve crimes, and it's about them getting, and then there's the heroes, of course, the lawyer and the war hero, and they, eventually they'll get married and they'll have sex behind closed doors. It's just, and it's about I also address the issues that women struggle with in that period, in 1815 England. So
Well,
it's
you
during
have to be true to your voice.
and that's, I had to. And so the thriller one will have sex. Don't know how much, but it's not going to be 50 Shades of Grey, that's for sure.
Maybe 25 Shades of Grey.
5. I'm like you. I'm more like you. I love that Alex and Carrie had sex, but it was not the big thing about the story for
I
me.
don't talk about body parts and everything too much.
Yeah, but I'm at the point where they're at the he got the 2 boys and they're at the pool, and he's like, "Let's go in the back. Let's go in the back," and she's like, "What?"
That was one of my funnest parts to write.
Oh, I thought it was sweet. It was sweet. And he's like, "I just want to date with you. I just want to go in on a date," and I get it. I mean, I think that to me is more romantic than he licked her toe, or he her. I don't know. Everybody has preferences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's how you find your readers. You get readers that resonate, that are on the same page with things like that.
Yeah. I was going to ask about your writing techniques. But I think you covered, you might have said.
I've experimented with everything. I've experimented with sticky notes. I've experimented with outlining.
Yeah.
I'm using an app right now called Evernote.
Okay. Yes, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it works for me. It's pretty. There's not a big learning curve. It's almost like having sticky notes but they're not physical sticky notes. They're just digital sticky notes
On your phone.
on
on your iPad.
on my laptop. Yeah.
Laptop. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you just pull it up and you type things, and then you're able to download it to Word or something like that. Or
Well, you
is
can
that
copy paste. You can copy paste sections of text.
Okay.
That's pretty much what I do. I know a lot of people swear by Scrivener. Scrivener, to me, I think it has a long learning curve.
Yeah.
I don't feel like spending. I feel like that would be time that I could be writing, that I would be spent learning how to do Scrivener. I know people that swear by it. It depends on you.
I'll check out Evernote. I think
I like it, and I don't pay for the premium because
Really?
if you pay for the premium, you can share your notes with a co-writer, but I don't have any co-writers. So I'm never going to share my notes. So
exactly. Okay,
yeah.
cool. I'll look into it. Well, I want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to be here with me on my first ever interview for A Writer's Perspective.
I am honored.
I am
Beyond honored to be your
I
first
am honored.
interview.
Let's argue about I am beyond honored. You're my first, and hopefully I can have you back again when you have some updates on your work in progress and other thoughts on other books that you probably will be working on.
I'd love to.
So, yes.
And
so
I
thank
wish you great success with your
Thank you. I'm really hoping that this will be a great venue for readers to come and discover new authors, and for writers to get an idea what it's like, and give them, hope and encouragement to fulfill their dreams of writing and learning. So Thank you, Heather. Have a good one.
Thank you, Lena.
Take care. You're welcome. Bye.
A big thank you to Heather for taking time from her hectic schedule to visit A Writer's Perspective. For more information about Heather, please check out her website, link listed below. Links are also listed to her books about love and happily ever afters. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button below for future interviews about romance and women's fiction. In the meantime, keep on reading and writing.